If there could be such a thing as a greatest camera of all time, then the Hasselblad 500 series has a very good claim to that title. This is, after all, the camera that went to the moon. Well, not this one, that one is still up there. But the 500 series, launched in 1957 with the 500C and updated in 1970 to the 500CM, was responsible for some of the most iconic photographs of all time. And the 500CM was produced from 1970 to 1994, 24 years, during which time it was used day in and day out by professionals as their daily workhorse, and many of these cameras still work absolutely fine, like this one here, which was built in 1980. So these cameras were made to last. So let's take a look at the Hasselblad 500CM and see what makes it so special and see how it works. The secret to this camera's success is the fact that it's completely modular. Everything on this camera comes apart, and every part on this camera is interchangeable with alternative parts. Obviously the lenses are interchangeable, but also the film goes into a separate back which is interchangeable. The viewing system is interchangeable. Even the film advanced knobs are interchangeable. There are different ones available, and the focusing screens as well, of course. So let's put all this back together and we'll take a look at each part in turn. Okay, let's start with the film back. Now the film backs on the Hasselblad are interchangeable. You simply flick this little switch to the right and it hinges off. You can see there are two little hinges on the bottom of the camera body, and there are two little holes on the bottom of the back, and the back slips into the slots at the bottom and clips on. Now what prevents the film from being exposed when you take the back off is this dark slide, which is a metal slide which goes into the back and prevents any light from reaching the film when you take the back off. And this enables you to have several backs. You could have several backs with the same film in, so when you run out you just pick up another back and carry on shooting. Or you could have colour in one and black and white in one. And there's also, of course, a Polaroid back, so you could shoot a Polaroid test as well. The little window on this side, which is red, tells me that there is no film and they're ready to go, so I'm going to have to load one. So let's do that. We flick up the little lever here, we twist it anti-clockwise, and we pull. And this is the inside cartridge. Now you start by taking the spool that was from the last roll of film used and putting it into the side that doesn't have an arrow on it, this side here. So we take our new film, we pop it in here, we pull it around, it goes underneath the metal guide, and then you feed it into the take-up spool. And then you turn this knob and you wind the new film onto the take-up spool until you get to the arrow on the film paper, which then lines up with the red arrow on the cartridge. When you get to this point, you stop winding and you put the film back in the holder, and then you lock it, and then you turn this crank to advance the film to frame number 1, like this. It stopped. And you can see there frame number 1. And then take out the dark slide. So the film's loaded and now we're ready to start taking pictures. First thing to do is to pop up the waist level finder. We flick this switch to the right, the finder pops up. Now the waist level finder is the standard viewing device, but there are alternatives. There's the chimney hood and there's the metering prism finder. Now the waist level finder and the chimney hood, the image when you look through is laterally reversed, whereas with the prism, obviously everything is turned the right way around. When it comes to focusing, there is a little magnifier built into the waist level finder that enables fine focusing, and you flick the switch and it pops up. The switch is there just under the top there. And when you've got the magnifier popped up, it enables you to focus more easily. And then when you're done, you just push it back down and it locks out of the way. So the lens fitted to this camera is the standard Carl Zeiss plain art 80mm f2.8. 80mm is the standard focal length for the Hasselblad. It's roughly equivalent to 50mm on 35mm. And this is the CT lens, which means it has the T-star coating, which gives you slightly better contrast when you're shooting into the light, and it's the lens which came as standard with the 500 cm. So let's look at the rings on the lens. There's the focus ring at the back, as you'd expect, and then there's the aperture and shutter speed rings. Now these are locked together, and as you turn one, they both turn. There's a good reason for this. If you have a handheld exposure meter with EV values written on it, you can use the red numbers at the bottom and just set an EV number. For example, EV10, EV11, EV8, let's set it to EV10. Once you set it to EV10, that couples the shutter speeds and apertures to give you a correct exposure at that EV, at that exposure value. So you've got a 30th at 5.6, 60th at f4, 125th at 2.8. Any of those combinations will give you the correct exposure for a meter reading of EV10. Now, if you're not using a handheld meter, or you don't want to use the EV settings, you can just set the aperture and shutter speed you want, but you have to pull this little lever back in order to uncouple the aperture and shutter speed, and then that way you can set them both independently of each other. One thing you'll notice as well is that once you've coupled them together, when you turn the dial, as the aperture changes, there are two little red markers which get wider apart and closer together. Now those, as you might have guessed, is the depth of field indicators. This one has a meter built into it, which I haven't seen before, but there's a standard film more advanced knob. This is the metering one, and there's also a rapid advanced crank, the one that kind of works like this one. Now to take a picture, once you've set your exposure and once you've focused, the shutter button is down in this corner, which is a great place because it means you can use it with either hand. You can hold the camera left-handed and operate it this way, or you can hold it like this and fire. And that is the basics of using a Hasselblad 500 cm. Now I used to use one of these all the time for many, many years, but haven't used it for quite a long time, and picking one up again after a break of quite a few years, I have to say, it's amazing how much I missed the experience of using it. It's a beautiful looking camera, it's incredibly well built, the design is virtually impossible to better really. It's small for the size of images that you get from it. You can operate it with either hand. You don't have to turn it on its side to shoot portrait format because you've got the square image. And it's just a delight to use. It feels fantastic. The feel of metal on metal feels fantastic. The sound of the shutter clunking sounds fantastic. And although it doesn't have the benefits of digital, obviously, it has other qualities which digital can't quite replicate. The user experience, and there's something about the pictures you get from a Hasselblad which can't quite be replicated digitally. Now these cameras used to go for a song. When digital first came out, no one really wanted film cameras. Sadly, people have caught on to the joys of using these cameras, and the prices have gone up significantly. You could probably expect to pay upwards of £1,500 to £2,000 for a camera like this, of this approximate age and condition. 5 years ago, they were probably about half that. So if you're interested in going back to using a Hasselblad, I wouldn't hang around because they're probably going to go up even more. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm off to shoot this roll of film now, but if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel and look out for more videos from Amateur Photographer.